Smartwatches are not the enemy. Well, at least not this one. Hi, I'm Zach Weiss, the co-founder of Worn & Wound, and today I'm going to be checking out the Sequent, Supercharger, and Elektron. Smartwatches that are really just smartwatches. Do you remember when the Apple Watch launched and people outside of the watch industry said this would be the end of the traditional wristwatch? That the smartwatch was king and everything else was antiquated? That luxury brands better figure out how to compete or perish? That something akin to the quartz crisis was about to happen again? Well, it's several years later and mechanical watches are thriving, but so are smartwatches. Or rather, the Apple Watches. While they didn't destroy horology, what Apple did do was open up a new market, as well as dominate a specific segment of the existing fashion watch market, and frankly, the smartwatch market as well. In doing so, they actually introduced many people to wearing wristwatches who never had before. It's really not all too uncommon these days for me to meet someone who got into watches via the Apple Watch. Perhaps they got it as a gift, perhaps they bought it for themselves, but either way, they caught the bug and now are interested in more traditional watchmaking. The usefulness of a smartwatch is also hard to argue with. I too, after many years of resisting, have succumbed to their functionality and, dare I say, charm. As you can see, I wear an Apple Watch on my right wrist and a real watch on my left. Yes, it tells the time, but that's not what I really care about. I use it to track my steps, which syncs to other health apps. I use it to see the upcoming weather for the next few hours. I use it as a timer and a calculator, as a meeting reminder, which is very helpful. And to pay for the subway, which I have to say is a really, really great feature. But not everyone is like me and willing to double wrist. They want some smart features, but don't want to wear a digital watch. So what do? Well, that's where Sequent watches come in, as they are the closest thing I've seen to a smartwatch that wears, feels, and looks like a nice traditional watch. The brand also clearly tailors their language and features for a crowd that is used to wearing mechanical watches. Perhaps the best place to start is the movement, which isn't something one typically thinks about with a smartwatch. You see, Sequent is a Swiss brand that was founded and is backed by industry veterans, people who are also behind the likes of Chapek and C. So they didn't want to just have some electronic guts powered by a battery that needs to be recharged every night and eventually just dies. They also are quite concerned with sustainability and the brand's environmental impact. So they developed an in-house caliber, as they refer to it, that is powered by motion. Yes, it's an automatic of sorts. As you can clearly see from the back, there is a large rotor, which is made of tungsten to increase inertia. That rotor spins around what appears to be a little puck of components. What this actually is a magnet, which is the black ring, which when combined with the motion of the rotor, creates a magnetic field. This is then converted to electricity via the coiled wire and metal. That part I don't quite understand, but hey, science. This electricity then goes on to power the electronics, which are visible through the dial on the Elektron model. If this sounds familiar, yes, it is clearly similar in concept to Sequent Kinetic, though I believe their execution and system are totally different. For one thing, there are no screws or gears in the movement, and rather than powering a quartz movement, obviously, it's running a smartwatch. In terms of autonomy, when worn, it's constantly generating power, so no concern about it dying in the middle of the day. And off the wrist, it has an impressive 12-month standby mode. It has some neat tricks to do this too, such as pausing the hands after 24 hours. When you pick it back up, the hands automatically go to the correct position. It also shuts down various features as the battery depletes, like Bluetooth connectivity when it gets under 40%. Should it get very low, the watches come with a neat little charger that you can use to fill it up quick. Before getting to what it does and doesn't do, let's take a look at the overall design. Both models feature 42 by 46 millimeter cases with 22 millimeter lugs. If you measure the height and include the sensor, they are 16 millimeters tall. If you don't, they're closer to 14. As the sensor is small and pushes into your wrist, I feel like that's a fairer number to go off. The Supercharger model is stainless steel, while the Elektron is titanium. With the strap seen here, the weight is only slightly different, 80 versus 76 grams. But you can see a difference in the brightness of the metal and that the finishing on the steel just looks a bit sharper. The case has an appealing shape with slightly rounded sides that do better at offsetting the height of the watch than, slab sides would have, though there's frankly no hiding the height. The cases are predominantly brushed, but do feature polished bevels on the lugs and around the bezel, and actually on the pushers too. The Sequent uses domed sapphire crystals on their watches too. Like I said, they clearly want to appeal to a crowd that is familiar with watches. On the left side of of the case, you'll find two indents that almost look like the sunken pushers of a perpetual calendar. They are actually the points of contact for the charging base. On the right side are what appear to be the crown and two pushers, as though these are chronographs. In actuality, they are all pushers, each linked to different functions, but more on that later. In terms of the dials, the two models are fairly similar, save a few details. The Supercharger dial surface is sunray blue and has applied markers with polished surrounds and lume fill. There's a contrasting chapter ring with hash marks for the minutes, and the Elektron has a transparent dial, also in blue, and has applied markers that are little oval-shaped rings made of molded lume. There is an outer index printed on the transparent surface with both numerals and hash marks. While both models are pretty sporty, the Supercharger feels like it's going for something more traditional, while the Elektron more of a modern sports techie look. This is also reinforced by the titanium case. Both models do also come in a variety of colors: blue, black, orange, white. Obviously, I skipped over the rather unique looking double retrograde display at 6, which is a good time to get into the smart features of the watches. Sequent is more concerned with the health and wellness side of smartwatches than the notification side. These aren't smartwatches that tell you when you got a text or that someone liked your Instagram post. Rather, they track steps, sleep, and via sensors on the back, your heart rate and blood oxygen levels. This information is displayed in two places. The first is the dial, bringing me back to that double index at 6. On the left side is a percentage scale from 0 to 100. The hand defaults to pointing somewhere on the scale and relates to the number of steps you have taken based on a value chosen via the app. Yeah, there's an app, and I'll get to it in a bit. If you double press the crown, it will show how much battery is left. The index on the right is for heart rate. Pressing the pusher at 4 will put it into pulsometer mode, indicated by a blinking red light and the hand jumping over. It takes a few seconds to read and then displays your heart rate. It's not continuous, which, frankly would have been nice. All other information is shown through Sequent's proprietary app, Oxygo, which is also used to set up the watch. While on that note, Apple has set a pretty high bar for things like setting up peripheral devices, particularly if you're within their own environment. So I was pleased by how easy it was to set up the watches using the app. Yes, you need to download it first and then sign up, but syncing was easy, and then you're just good to go. When you open the app, it will ask you to sync by hitting the crown once. This usually works, though occasionally I've had to restart the app. The information presented speaks for itself. You'll see activity, which is your steps on the top left with a percentage of completion echoing the watch. On the top right is sport, which relates to the sport mode. This is a mode you enter manually by hitting the top pusher on the hand, spinning the hands around once, and blinking the light purple. This is what you'd hit before you go for a run, go for a hike, ride your bike, go for a long walk, etc. It compartmentalizes the activity and can provide GPS data as well. At the bottom are sleep, heart rate, and blood oxygen. I can't sleep wearing a watch, so I didn't try it, but you get what it would show. All of these cards can be clicked into for greater detail. Overall, I think it's a pretty comprehensive and easy to use app, though likely not as detailed as what other companies might provide. But if you're looking for a Garmin-like experience, you'd get a Garmin. This is more kind of like casual. One part I didn't mention is the community section in the middle. This is a way to join a group which compares your activity level to that of others in the group, ranking you amongst them. I guess this is meant as a motivator of sorts. You can click to see other people's ranks, but for their privacy, I won't do that here. There's also a really slick calibration function built in should the hands not be aligned with the time correctly. By going to Setting and Watch, you can hit Calibrate. This will put the hour at 6 and the minute at 12. Should they be off, you can adjust them. I'll just pretend they are off to show you. Rotating this virtual jog wheel will immediately move the hands, first hours and then minutes. I don't know, I just thought that was pretty cool. So what's it like to actually wear and use a Sequent watch? Yeah, pretty nice overall. In terms of fit, yeah, it's maybe a bit large for my taste. I'd love to see a 38mm, and it's a touch thick too. Obviously thinner would be better, as you're meant to wear this while being active. But the lug to lug is short, so it sits well on my 7-inch wrist. I did wear the Elektron while running in a park, which I prefer not to do while wearing a watch during, as I find they bounce around and are heavy, hence the Apple Watch. But it didn't bother me at all. In terms of styling, I think both are nice looking, if perhaps a bit plain. The Elektron has more personality thanks to the molded lume and transparent dial, but also looks more like a piece of tech for the same reason. The Supercharger is classic and handsome, but if it didn't have that unique double-sided index at 6, I think it would be perhaps a bit generic. But I guess this is a challenging tightrope for a brand like Sequent to walk. They need to attract customers who are maybe coming from digital watches, so are more of a mainstream consumer. But they also need to attract people who are already into watches and want to add in some health tracking function. Go too far into watch nerd territory, and they might alienate the former group. Too simple, and the latter might not be interested. Too techy, and they might need to find a totally different base entirely. Another important factor is, of course, pricing. There are some variables depending on strap choice, but the Supercharger starts at $745 and the Elektron starts at $795. This puts them in interesting territory. They cost more than most Apple Watches, save the Ultra, but less than higher-end Garmin's. They also cost a lot less than some of the luxury brands' smartwatches like Heuer and Hublot, and about the same as an affordable Swiss automatic, like a Tissot. In terms of quality, they do feel priced appropriately. They have a heft and solidity to them that I don't usually associate with tech, but I would with, say, a high-end quartz. So is a Sequent watch right for you? I think if you're interested in some smartwatch functionality, but not smartwatch looks, and don't want to be weird like me and double wrist, look, I don't even consider this a watch so much as a tech device that happens to tell the time, but whatever. They are, certainly worth considering. The tech seems good and they are well made, but the winning factor really is the automatic winding or charging. Having to charge a device is a pain for a lot of people. You have to remember to do it or the device is useless. You already have to deal with your phone, now something else. If you're traveling, you have to pack extra crap. The list goes on. That just isn't an issue if you wear the Sequent regularly. Sure, there is solar tech which can achieve a similar result, and they actually have a solar line as well that costs a bit less. But for watch people out there, converts from the world of mechanical timepieces, that little bit of mechanics in the form of a rotor adds to the appeal, the charm, and the unique positioning of the watches. Regardless, I hope Sequent keep on doing what they are doing. There have been others that have tried in the analog smartwatch space, like Frederic Constant with the MMT Horological smartwatch, and it didn't last. Brands like Withings seem to be doing quite well, but are more in that slightly disposable tech category. Sequent wanted to make a smartwatch you treat like a watch, not something you'd upgrade in a couple of years or throw out when the battery died. And in that goal, I think they did a really great job. Thanks for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel if you can. We appreciate it. And head to wornandwound.com to check out more great content about watches. See you soon.